Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Did I Ask podcast. This is our last episode in the mental health series throughout October, and it's just been a blast to be able to talk to all these guests that I've had on and upcoming to talk to Kayla. I've learned so much, and I hope that you guys were able to learn something from this as well. While this is something I focused on for the month, it is definitely not something we should just focus on for one month of the year. Mental health is something we need to talk about more and be more aware of, so I hope we can continue this conversation all year round. Kayla is a mental health specialist. She is also a registered social worker, and she shares a lot of good tips on dealing with mental health during the pandemic. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen to it, and without further ado, let's get into this episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Did I Ask podcast. This week I'm sitting down with Kayla Coombs. Kayla is a mental health specialist with a master's in social work. She is also a registered social worker. Hi Kayla, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
So Kayla, to start, what inspired you to go down this sort of mental health and social work route in your professional life?
Yeah, so my mom, my mother, who I love very dearly, she's like my role model, best friend. She's actually a clinical therapist in Oakville. So she has a private practice that she runs downtown Oakville. And she specializes in marriage and families, couples counseling, individual counseling. She kind of does it all. Anyway, so I grew up with my mom being a therapist, kind of just getting to know sort of the field that she's in as I grew up, and I loved just hearing kind of what she was doing and the fact that she was helping so many people. So that really sparked an interest right away. And then it wasn't until actually third year university where I took an intro to counseling course actually. And I had to role play being a therapist with a client, and I was like, this is it. This has got to be my thing, because it came naturally to me. It's just kind of part of my personality. I think it's the most rewarding field there is. It's hard at times, you're dealing with tough situations, but it is very, very rewarding. So I'm a full-time school social worker in a private high school in Oakville, and then I do some private practice work on the side.
That's awesome. That's such a cool way to sort of get into it, like third year, just in a course and just find that passion. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So what do you think the importance of seeking help when someone is struggling with mental illness?
Yeah, so there is so much power in being able to name how you feel. I always, Mark Brackett is a psychologist who came up with this idea of name it to tame it. And if you can name how you're feeling, it actually does something to your brain. It releases these like feel good hormones, because then you can begin to actually tame it, and you feel a bit of a release. Once you have that weight lifted off of you, you do feel a release. So it's so important to connect with someone, tell them how you're coping. If you're not coping well, if you are coping well, what's working for you. But by reaching out, it just does wonders for our mental health. So, you're able to process what's happening. You can create space in your brain to kind of deal with it rather than just letting it, stuffing it down. And you can kind of get above it and see the situation differently. So naming it allows you to create a kind of a roadmap for how then you're going to move forward and be able to experience healing. And then you don't get super overwhelmed by it when you're able to talk about it and process your feelings.
That's really interesting. I never knew that naming it was that big of a, impact on healing. Yeah. So that's really cool to sort of learn. And so would you say that like seeing, someone for help, they might have that ability to help you name it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you just feel crappy, you feel crummy, but you don't know how to name it, right? So you just go to someone with these feelings, but just saying I feel crappy, right? That's
Yeah.
naming it in and of itself.
Right.
And then from there, right, you and that therapist, or you and the friend, even doesn't have to be a professional right away, but you're just able to kind of explore, okay, what's going on a little bit, what steps do you need to take, um, because depression is like fed off of isolation. So when you are isolating yourself, it's just this vicious cycle. You feel more depressed because you're isolated, and then because you're depressed, you don't want to get up, so you don't see anyone, and then it's just this constant cycle, right? So it's about breaking that cycle and saying, hey, reaching out, I do need help, I'm not doing okay, right? And that's okay, right? If you have big emotions, it's not because something is wrong with you or you're weak, it's because you're human, right?
Right.
We all are human, we all have mental health. They say if you have a brain, you have mental health. So it's so important to just keep that in mind, that if you're struggling, you are not alone, and we're meant to do life with people, not alone.
So we just touched on sort of isolation, and I know that that's been sort of a
Mhm.
big theme throughout the pandemic. And I think this pandemic has really opened my eyes to mental illness, seeing how isolation and uncertainty has impacted the people around me. And from my perspective, it's
Mhm.
kind of seemed like we've seen the prevalence of mental illness in society. And what do you think the
Mhm.
impacts of having this sort of experience were?
Yeah, so oh man, there's a lot. I still remember I was in Mexico for March break, and I was told by Justin Trudeau, get yourself home while you still can. And I can't believe that we're still here, in the mix of it. And, people are saying now that it's something that we are going to have to learn how to live with. It's not going to go away anytime very soon. So,
Mhm.
learning to tolerate the discomfort, tolerate the uncertainty is really important, and learn how to manage our anxiety is going to be key to kind of help us thrive during this time, not just try to get by and survive. So, um, in terms of the prevalence of mental illness, it's very unfortunate to actually look at the stats. So, domestic abuse has gone up a ton in families and relationships, anxiety, of course, and anxiety looks different for everyone, right? So there could be general anxiety or social anxiety, and then depression, low mood, depression. Definitely, as we kind of approach November too, it gets cold out, and it gets, it's a bit wet lately, and it's dark. So there's this thing called SAD, right? Seasonal affective disorder. We call it SAD, and just everyone's mood is impacted by the weather too. So that doesn't help us. So it's COVID, but it's so much more too, right? But what has happened is we've lost our control, I think, as humans. And as humans, we really love control. We need structure, we need routine, we need control, we need connection. And COVID has kind of ripped a lot of that away from us. And so that's been very challenging, right? We don't have as much choice. Some people say our human rights have been taken away. We have to wear masks, and we can't do this, we can't do that. And so there's a lack of choice, there's a lack of control. And as humans, we don't like that. We don't do well with that. We get anxious, and we, some more than others, but we, it's just been challenging. So yeah, so there's a lot there to
For sure.
unpack, but there's many layers. I think COVID has caused some of like negative things to happen, but it also has just exposed negative things
Mhm.
that were already there pre-pandemic.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, a lot of people are who are listening are working from home or doing online school like myself. What is your advice for sort of staying motivated and positive while just being at home?
Mm. Yeah, so I just want to say I kind of admire the people that are still working from home. I am actually back in the school as a school social worker. I'm able to leave the house. So I couldn't even imagine what it's like to still be working at home, but kudos to you guys. And I would just say that, in terms of motivation, I always say that action precedes motivation. So you really need to act first. If I waited around until I felt like going to the gym, I would never go to the gym. So you have to kind of get yourself, don't even think twice about it. get yourself out of the house, get yourself on that walk or going to work out, because motivation will follow. And so that's just an important thing, that you want to act first, rather than just waiting around until you feel like doing something. So in terms of motivation, structure and routine, right? Getting yourself out of bed. There's so much to say for just making your bed in the morning, having a routine, getting up, making your bed, getting dressed. Even if you're working from home, you can still dress up. Psychologically, that does a lot for you, and it helps you just feel better. Right? If you feel better, you can show up as your more authentic self. So yeah, and I think, writing lists are really important, right? So we all have lots to do. Write a list and prioritize those tasks. What do you have to do? There's nothing more satisfying than, crossing off something on your list, for all those type A people out there, for sure. And some days you're just going to want to do nothing, and that's really good for our mental health too. But I would say structure those days into your schedule. So I like to have every day, I like to have a little bit of what I call white space in my schedule. And this white space really just allows me to say, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to go on a walk. I can do whatever I want with that space, but it's structured in. Because if you structure it into your calendar, you're more likely to actually do it. When you're not having structure and it's just all this discretionary time, you don't know what to do with it, that's when you start to kind of give into your feelings. Well, I'm going to lie in bed because I feel like it all day. Right. And so that's not healthy or helpful for anyone. So structure a routine, make lists. And I would say, in terms of staying positive, we need to focus on what we can control. There's so much out of our control right now. Like I said, we have lost that sense of control. But what can we control? We can control how we eat, how we sleep, how often we sleep, how much we sleep, how often we're moving our bodies. So we can control that in terms of how we're taking care of ourselves. And I think every day, I think everyone needs to have a sense of accomplishment and a sense of pleasure. So I want you to do some good and have some fun. And even just consider, when was the last time that you had fun? Right? We need to have pleasure in our life. Even I call them mini vacations. So what can you do this weekend or this coming week, to have a little mini vacation, to a little getaway? Obviously none of us are traveling these days, but what do you enjoy doing? Go do it. Right? And little moments like that add up and build off on each other, and are really good for our mental health. So, and the sense of accomplishment is really important, right? Just being able to feel a sense of competency, that, if you're lying in bed all day and you're not getting anything done, of course you're not going to feel a sense of accomplishment. So what can you do to feel some and build some mastery?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's all super good advice. I'm definitely the type of person who just like thrives to cross things off my to-do list. It's like my favorite time of the day.
Yeah. So for you, I would want you to write down, like rest, right? Like,
Right.
I'm going to actually put that on my to-do list. I'm going to rest. I'm going to do nothing. And I want you to
Yeah.
cross that off, and that's going to feel good too, right? So it's important, right? So for these, people like yourself, and I'm the same, I'm sort of that achiever type of, type A person, but if we need to give ourselves permission to rest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for that. So, lastly, if someone is struggling or they know someone who's struggling, what are some good resources that you can share with us?
So the way I like to kind of talk about it is three words that rhyme: dare, care, and share. So I want people to be able to dare enough to ask someone how they're doing. If you can sense some warning signs or you see some things that are a bit out of character, so dare to ask someone how they're doing. Care to listen to them, right? And genuinely really listen, not trying to just fix their problem, but just listen and be there. That's so powerful, just to be a presence, a compassionate presence for that person. And then share. So you can't take that burden on your own. Especially if you're not a professional, right? It's really important that you consider connecting that person to a professional who can help them further. As a friend, you can only do so much, and you don't want to do any harm. So that's really important. So dare, care, share is for, if someone who's struggling, And then I would say if you're struggling, then just know that you are absolutely not alone. We are all worldwide, global, the whole globe is going through this. Um, and and we're all experiencing different emotions that we've kind of never really had to deal with before, and we've never been through this before. So just know you're not alone, and reaching out is not a sign of weakness. It is actually the opposite. It is strength. And there are people that are willing and ready to help you. So just reach out to a friend, and maybe it's just a friend or maybe it's a professional, and then go from there. um, because again, if you're feeling tough emotions, it's because you're human.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all these tips and information. I learned so much, and I hope everyone listening did as well. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you were able to take something away from this episode as well. Kayla had so many good tips to share, and I am so excited to be able to share this episode with you guys. If you want to check Kayla out on Instagram, it is at Kayla Coombs _. It will also be linked in the show notes. Kayla has also prepared a document for us of mental health resources for you or someone you may know. So make sure you click the link in my bio to check it out. It is on Google Docs, and I'm really happy that I get to share this with you guys. Again, thank you so much for following along with this journey. This is our last episode in the mental health month, but of course, this is something that we need to talk about and think about all year round. I hope you were able to take something away from this month of episodes, and I will talk to you guys in my next episode. Peace out.